Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be talking through my most disappointing books of 2021. Now, I hate starting videos with a disclaimer because I feel like if you've clicked on this video, then you probably already know that this is going to be a slightly more negative video because I'm going to be talking about the books that disappointed me this year. So these are all books that I gave 2 or 3 stars that I was expecting to love a lot more than I did. There's actually only 6 books on my list, and I'm not going to do a worst books of the year because I don't have enough books that I can add to that list. I was looking through my Goodreads stats earlier, and apparently the average rating of all of the books that I read this year was 4.0, so 4 stars, which I was really surprised at, but it just goes to show that I spend more time talking about books that I love on this channel than books that I don't love. I really don't want to upset anyone because obviously this is just my opinion, but these books unfortunately just weren't for me in the end. So I don't know actually if my best books of the year video is going to go up after this one or before. I think I've already uploaded my favourite fantasy books of the year, so if you want to check that out then I'll leave it in the cards and in the description. I don't know what order I've put these in. I think I've put them in chronological order, so starting with the first book that I read this year, or one of the first books that I read back in January, and that was The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Now, I was really excited for this book because I loved The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I really loved the writing and the atmosphere, and I was expecting something similar from The Starless Sea. And to be fair, I did really love the atmosphere in this book, and I did like the writing. I think it was the plot that I had the main issue with. It's a really complicated book to explain because it's essentially a book within a book. So the first chapter is this short story about a pirate, if I'm remembering rightly, and then the second chapter is this other short story, and then so on until you reach a chapter where you're following the main character, Zach, who finds a book in a library, and he opens this book up, and the first chapter is a short story about a pirate, and so on. But then he reaches this one chapter that actually tells a story of something that happened to him in his childhood, and it kind of goes from there. The main issue that I had with this book is that it was so slow paced, and by the time I reached the point where things started to make more sense, I'd forgotten a lot of the stuff that happened earlier on in the book. So it was this really frustrating situation where I would read something and I would think, hang on a minute, I should know what this means. I should know what this is referring to, but I can't remember because it's been so long since I read the start of this book. So I was having to flick back and forth constantly to try and piece everything together in my brain, and I think it's one of those books where I would really benefit from rereading it, except that I don't want to reread it because I really struggled to read it the first time. Generally it was just really frustrating because there was so much that I just didn't understand. However, I really liked the setting and how I felt like I was transported into this world, so for that reason I would still recommend it. If you like books that have really good atmosphere, then I think that there's a good chance that you would really love this one. Most of the reviews that I've seen have either given it 2 stars or 5 stars, so it is definitely a very polarizing book, and unfortunately it just didn't work for me. The next book on my list is King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo, which is the 6th book in the Grishaverse series, and I think that this is probably my most disappointing book of the year because I was so excited to read this. I was so excited to be back in this world, but I hated a lot of this book. The beginning was really boring. It was really frustrating because all of the reviews that I'd seen had said that this has a very slow beginning, but the ending made up for it, and I didn't like the ending, and so it probably is just a me thing. Maybe it's an unpopular opinion, but I did end up reading Rule of Wolves immediately after this, and I did like it a little bit more because I liked one of the characters' perspectives in this book and in Rule of Wolves, but the other 2 perspectives I didn't enjoy so much. I did actually do a spoiler-filled reading vlog for both King of Scars and Rule of Wolves if you want to check that out, because obviously it's quite hard to go into specific details without spoilers, but yeah, wasn't for me, unfortunately. Next on my list is The Road Trip by Beth, which I was so excited for, and I actually had an arc of this through NetGalley, so I read it before before it came out because I really enjoyed both of Beth O'Leary's other books, The Flat Share and The Switch, but this just wasn't for me, unfortunately. I am really glad that I read it because it's helped me learn that I really don't like second chance romances. The story follows two characters, Dylan and Addie, who used to date many years ago. However, they then broke up and they haven't really spoken for I think it's a couple of years, but now in the present day they are stuck in a car travelling to this wedding of a mutual friend. So you follow this one timeline in the past where you see how they met and how they got together and how they broke up, and then you also follow them in the present day where you see them car sharing to this wedding and how there's unresolved feelings still there. The thing about second chance romances is that I really struggle to root for characters to get together, and that is something that I need in a romance book. I need to want these characters to get together, and the problem with second chance romances is that quite often you get that timeline in the past where you're seeing why a couple broke up, and if I agree with why they broke up, then I don't want them to get back together. I think there's also personal reasons why I don't really love second chance romances because they hit just a little too close to home. But like I said, I am still glad that I read this so that it's helped me to learn about my taste in romance books, and I will still read other books by Beth O'Leary because I do still like her writing style. Next on my list is They Both Die at the End by Silvera, which is a YA contemporary that also has a sci-fi twist. So it's set in this alternative reality or in the future where this company have come up with this way of predicting when people are going to die. So on the day that you're due to die, you get a phone call warning you. The story follows two main characters, Matteo and Rufus, who are both teenagers. I think they're 17, 18, and you essentially follow them on their last days on Earth because they've just received their phone calls. I think the main issue that I had with this book is that I felt like the sci-fi elements were a little underdeveloped, and it's a shame because I felt like there was so much potential with this book, and I really wanted to see the way that society has been changed by this discovery, and it did touch on that a little bit in the beginning, but I felt like that kind of petered off the further that we got into the book. I also expected it to be a lot more emotional than it actually was, and even listening to the audiobook, I felt like the characters were just a little bit flat. I know that this is a really popular book, and so I think that I am in the minority, but I think maybe Silvera's writing just isn't for me. Next on my list is Assassin's Quest by Hobb, which is book 3 in the Realm of the Eldlings and also book 3 in the Farseer trilogy, which is the first series within the Realm of the Eldlings. The thing about this series is that I really like Hobb's writing, and I really love the characters and the character development and the atmosphere and all of the different individual elements. However, the main issue that I had with Assassin's Quest in particular is that it was so painfully slow, and I don't mind slower paced fantasy, but this book didn't need to be as long as it was. I think it was over 700 pages. I actually listened to the audiobook, and I'm pretty sure that the audiobook was what, like 30 hours long? 37 and a half hours long, I've just checked on Scribd, and most of this book felt very repetitive because I enjoyed the beginning, especially with the way that Royal Assassin ended. I was really excited going into Assassin's Quest. However, the middle section was just pointless. I mean, maybe pointless is the wrong word. It was just taking forever to get to the point, and then when we actually got to the end of the trilogy and things were wrapping up, I felt like it was just over so quickly, and it left me feeling really disappointed because I was fully expecting to love this series. I was expecting to give every single book 5 stars, and unfortunately I gave Assassin's Quest 2 stars, but I am still excited to continue with the Realm of the Eldlings. Heard really good things about the Live Ship Traders trilogy, and just from looking at the synopsises, I think there's a better chance of me loving that series in comparison to the Fitz books, mostly because they're multi-POV, whereas the Farseer trilogy is single POV. The final book on my list is a book that I am still so upset about because I put this on my 5-star predictions list. I was fully expecting to love this, and unfortunately I gave it 2 stars, but that is We Hunt the Flame by Hafsah Faizal. This is a young adult fantasy that follows 2 main characters, Nasir and Zafira. So Zafira lives at the edge of these woods, and she's the only person that can actually enter these woods to hunt to feed her people. Nasir is the son of the Sultan, and he is essentially an assassin, so he kills anyone that defies his father, that his father tells him to. They both end up going on this quest to retrieve this lost artifact, which is supposedly able to restore magic to this world. The thing about this book is that I didn't think that there was anything technically wrong with the writing. I actually liked the writing. I thought that it was very beautifully atmospheric. However, the main issue that I had was with the world building. So the world building to me felt very random and illogical, and nothing really made sense, especially when it came to the characters' actions. I think because it was so slow paced in the beginning, it meant that when something exciting did happen, I did just find it very jarring, because it felt like we were going so slow and then something would happen, but then it would go back to being slow again. I actually almost DNF'd this at, I think it was the 40% mark, because I was really struggling. However, I persisted because I was actually reading this to fulfill a readathon prompt, and so I did finish it. I didn't love it, unfortunately. I did think that the second half was a lot stronger than the first half, but I'm not going to continue the series because I just didn't love the first book, and it is such a shame because this is a duology, which I usually like. I like duologies because they're less commitment, but I don't think that I would enjoy the second book, so I don't think I'm going to pick it up. But yeah, I think that does bring me to the end of the video, so thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, especially if you liked any of these books. Please let me know, because I do really like having that discussion and understanding why people loved books that I didn't like, and I also like watching videos like these to understand why people didn't like books that I personally loved. But yeah, thanks again for watching, and if you liked this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Bye!